in thin air.
You know, I'm gonna sound super curmudgeonly saying this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm just gonna feel how it lands, which is that, you know, when I was first investing into infrastructure, this was like 2018, 2019, after the 2017 bull run, and at that time it was really clear that Ethereum was not going to scale. Ethereum was not performance enough to be able to handle all the demand for transactions. And that created this generation of founders who were like, we need to scale block space. We need to scale smart contract platforms. And that was the genesis of the Solanas and the Nears and the Avalanches and all the Plasmas, rollups, all that stuff came out of that era because of that very strong need that everybody saw that this stuff needs to get better and improve so that we can do the stuff we want to do on chain, right? It feels that now in 2023, it feels like the best minds of my generation are once again all working on infrastructure, but it's not really clear to me that there is the crushing need for everybody to be focused on it, right? Like we kind of have rollups, right? But people are like, oh, but you need perfect modular DAs, then you need this shared sequencers, then you need like some fancy MEV contraption to more accurately democratize this and that. And it's kind of like, well, we finally got a bunch of people on chain. We finally got lots and lots of people on chain. We got lots of block space. We have so many places where you can launch an application. We have rollups. I mean, obviously, yeah, we need fraud proofs and stuff to get up and running, but we kind of have the first cut ready to go. But it seems like people are kind of myopically focused on infrastructure at a time when it feels like we really need more people thinking about how to build great applications that bring people on chain. So it feels like even though we're at the same place where almost everybody's focused on infrastructure, it feels much more misdirected in this cohort. Not that nobody should be working on it, but that should really 80, 90% of entrepreneurs be building infrastructure instead of building things for people to use on chain. It feels wrong to me.
I agree. And we say at the beginning of the show, this is not investment advice, but if you're a founder, maybe this is founder advice. Hear Haseeb as the VC telling you there's a wrong ratio of infrastructure to applications to use that infrastructure.
Yeah. Now that said, like I understand why people are doing it because they see where the incentives are, right? They see where the funding is going. And I don't think we've done any large infrastructure deals this year, but most of the large deals this year have all been infrastructure. So I can understand the force, it's a tough time to be building applications, right? There's not a lot of people, with pocketbooks open on chain willing to play around with stuff.
Except for hamster racing.
And Worldcoin.
And Worldcoin. Okay. All right. So with that as a beautiful transition, let's go to the two big stories of the week. So the first up is Worldcoin. So Worldcoin, for those of you who don't know, it is a project that was originally co-founded by Sam Altman, who's now the CEO of OpenAI. So they are how do you even describe this? So Worldcoin, it's a cryptocurrency, and the idea is that they want a sort of proof of personhood. And the way that you prove you are a person is that there is an orb, a literal physical orb, that you can pick up. There are a bunch of them around the world, and this physical orb will scan your iris, and it will create some basically more or less encrypted record of your iris that will identify you as being a singular person. It gets tied to your address as like a proof of personhood, and this creates a wallet for you tied to your scan of your iris. So they have scanned something like 2 million people, supposedly, mostly in the third world, none of them in the US and in Europe, because obviously this is less kosher in the US and Europe. And so they just launched their token on Monday. And their token launched, currently it's about $250 million market cap on a $22 billion FDV. And you're reading that right. That is a 1% float. So meaning 1% of the total supply of the token is currently circulating. There's been a lot of... That's right. That's right. So I've heard a lot of people say that this is the new Sam coin, which is a very reminiscent distribution of what SBF and kind of the FTX crowd used to do.
I just hope he doesn't use it as collateral anywhere. That would be a shame.
Yeah, I think Sam Altman is a little busier than SBF, but yeah, it's right now very, very suspect in terms of the actual real price discovery of this token, because apparently the vast majority of this float is owned by market makers who have, let's say, complex incentives around how they're playing with this thing. But then separately, after this thing launched, Vitalik published a blog post basically critiquing the biometric proof of personhood system that Worldcoin is using, and then you've got just a lot of people taking shots at them on Twitter, saying that, oh, this is like some kind of totalitarian scoop up everybody's eyeballs from the third world kind of, I don't know, whatever. People talking shit about Worldcoin. I haven't seen a lot of positivity, or basically almost everybody on Twitter is kind of mad. It seems like at Worldcoin. I'd be curious just to hear from you guys. Give me the best positive take you can give on Worldcoin.
Here's my best positive take. It is really hard to figure out a mapping of one person, one set of biometrics, one address. Like, we've seen again and again and again every Sybil attack possible against every airdrop that's ever been imagined in crypto. We've seen people try to farm, everything they can. We've seen like armies of people spinning up thousands of accounts, to try to take advantage of things that don't even exist yet. And it is a hard fundamental problem to identify who's a real person, how many real people are there, how many people are using this application. We have a decade plus of people trying to game the metrics around L1 blockchains, creating fake activity and fake usage, because why not? It's easy to make 1 million wallets, right? And make it appear like your blockchain has 1 million more users. It's a real problem. It affects so much of what we do. And whether or not you think the approach to the solution is correct, and personally, I don't know if it is, and it's pretty creepy, and I don't love it. It is an incredibly difficult and important problem to solve, and it's worth solving, and they're taking a creative approach at solving it.
Believable.
Okay, I have a very different positive
okay.
story. I actually think Vitalik's post was not critical. It was generally quite positive. And part of the reason is I actually think while Sam Altman's probably someone I would not necessarily trust with trying to not resell this type of data, some of the people who work there on the ZK side of like encrypting, basically what it does is there's this device, it has a sensor, the sensor has a particular attestation mechanism so it can sign. And what they do is they take the picture, they create this sort of like hash fingerprint, and then they generate a zero knowledge proof, a way of proving that, hey, if you took the picture again, machine learning model tagged your eyes and your face like a normal face detection thing. And it's the same thing without revealing the input. So without revealing like, hey, this is the picture. So that's the only thing sort of stored publicly. And the sort of head of research there is one of the kind of smartest, but also like very privacy focused people I've ever met in this industry, whose name's Remco. And I genuinely don't think he would work on such a thing if they didn't have this kind of long-term goal of actually achieving the attested sensor privacy. Now, that being said, the eyeball stuff is personally, I find a little bit very creepy. I also just don't think that their auditing was particularly good, and I can't really check a lot of the details of exactly how the system works. It feels like they rushed it. Like, why do you have to launch this token now? Like that to me just seemed like cash grab. The float thing, cash grab. But they do have these like engineers and researchers who are amazing there. So I think, to me, the fact that those people, I think if they saw real malevolence, would quit. And then at that point, it's like short it type of thing.
Not trading advice.
Not trading advice.
Yeah. Okay.
But like sorry. But I think there's a lot of cool things they're doing. But yeah, the token just really felt cash grabby. I don't know what else to say.
I mean, my only argument against the token is I'm just disappointed that it's like an L1 token. Like, I would think if they're trying to make a currency for the whole world to use, they would have waited to release the token.
It's not though, right? Or like it's kind of
no, it's on an L1. It's
on Ethereum, but the wallet that they create for you when you sign up with Worldcoin, it used to be on Polygon, now it's on Optimism. So it's like, it's kind of like going where the money is so they can buy the token, even though the token doesn't really do anything today. I agree. I think the tech is actually very cool. I think the goal is actually very admirable, and like I don't know what people envision that like the current way we do KYC and like passporting is actually superior to this. I think this is actually way better than the sort of the current system. But I agree. I mean, the token. I remember, we were looking at the round and like, talking about a business model. It's like, oh well, maybe we'll like, charge people to, look up your ID, or like maybe we'll, do some like MetaMask Uniswap fees, and it's just like kind of a big question mark. And so I'm like, so it doesn't feel like that's really figured out, and it feels like totally unnecessary to like launch a token when you don't even really have clear PMF, and it doesn't really serve a purpose in meaningfully decentralizing the system.
Also, I think a very good, a bunch of people have commented on like their docs are missing a lot of like they've been working on this in the open for a while, but they kind of like rushed to launch it in a way that just didn't seem like timed well. It felt like forced, whether by, and I don't know who forced it, investors, whatever. It didn't feel like extremely, like a natural kind of launch. But again, like there's a lot of people who work there who I have the utmost respect for. And I really think if they were doing something duplicitous, I do not think any of those people would stay. And that the moment you see any of them leave, that's when it's like, all right, the orb is just trying to fuck you.
I will say, Tarun, I find this argument of like, I know people there, it's cool, don't worry about it, like that.
No.
After having gone through 2022, I have a very hard time stomaching
the difference between like Remco and SBF is Remco has a like long-standing, in Ethereum development.
Look, Remco's awesome. Remco's awesome. Right. I completely agree with you. I'm sure they're paying him a lot of that Sam Altman money.
Yeah, sure. But I just kind of think like there are a lot of things like at this point that like if they continued fucking up, I see a lot of people who work there leaving, and they've said as such. So it's like I also, so a very funny fact is in 2017, 2018, I met one of the co-founders who was kicked out by Altman, the current co-founder, this guy Max. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was a raving crazy lunatic when he told me this idea. He was like, yeah, like, I used to work at M-Pesa, which is this payment system in Africa that was on mobile phones. And I think the number one problem is this identity problem. And the reason it worked in Africa is because the cellular companies all made this like federation, and you could kind of like, they agreed to tell each other whether someone was a real person or routed the right way. And he's like, what if you could do that with blockchain? And I was like, okay, how do you plan on doing that? He's like, I don't know. There's got to be a way to do it. And so I remember when I first heard this, I was like, this is fucking crazy. This is like Silicon Valley hubris that we're going to give UBI to everyone, ... right? Like it started as a UBI project. It didn't start as like identity project. The identity thing was about distributing UBI, but then it was sort of like a MacGuffin. Like the end goal wasn't the thing that it became. Like the thing that you had to do to get to the end goal was the main plot in the story. And that's like what you have now. But yeah, I find it a little bit distasteful in the way the token was launched, and I think they're going to have a very hard time coming back from that.
Yeah, I will say to Worldcoin's credit, obviously we've all kind of said the main things that there are to say in terms of critiquing them. The one thing I will say about Worldcoin is that it is a big vision, and that is one thing that I think a lot of people in crypto have been missing for the last year.
I mean, when you have that many eyeballs, that is a big amount of vision.
Wow, great 10 out of 10 dad joke. Thank you, Robert. It is ambitious, and it's also, I mean, it is more or less exactly what we were talking about, which is that almost everybody's trying to build infrastructure. Where are the people building applications? And I mean, it's not exactly like
application.
This is an application. This is an application. This is something that people would do. It is, it's a spectrum. It's crypto, right? You take what you can get.
I think
at least not an L2.
The better version of Worldcoin that I hope will happen, but unfortunately investors will require a Sam Altman-like figure to make this thing not sound like it was deranged suddenly going into actually existing, is just like attested sensors in general. Like this idea that like the sensor generates some proof of identity that wasn't generated by a computer. that's in general going to be one of the biggest applications. Like I just don't, and I feel like WorldCoin can completely fuck up, be AOL and the AOL Time Warner merger, but like still will have at least given people this idea that like this, you can actually do this at scale, which no one cares about.
Here's my idea. Here's my startup idea for some crazy founder out there. You make WorldCoin without the orb, where you could just use the webcam right in front of you, and like everyone can just like go on their computer and get 10 coins. There's no 25% for some team. It's just like everyone who can scan their face onto the computer and rotate their face and do all that gets 10 coins, and that's your fairly distributed crypto asset.
Robert, I have bad news for you about what video generation works these days.
Yeah, I was about to be like, there's no way you can. A tested sensor thing though is real. Like that's going to be the future. The question is, how do you get the hardware costs for it down enough that anyone and their mom could write what Robert just described, but like your webcam happens to have an attested sensor in it, and it costs $10.
Put the attested sensor in the webcam.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, I think the reason the optics of the orb are obviously weird.